Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in this video I'll be talking how to integrate Django and React, and to help you as a full stack developer integrate and take advantage of the best of both worlds, Django on the back end and React on the front end. The reason I'm doing this video is that initially I had a lot of problems integrating these two technologies together, and ideally at the end of the day we want to have a very seamless way in which React and Django can be deployed together. The easiest way of doing this is creating a REST framework, sort of like an API bridge, where Django lives by itself on the back end and React lives independently on the front end and are sort of like separate entities. The biggest advantage here is that you get to separate your concerns, and in this use case you can use Create React App to bootstrap your React application, which is a bit easier. But that's where the advantages end. A lot of problems that arise with this approach, even if it's the easiest, are the following. First of all, it's not so great for small teams. I've found out when I'm working as one developer in a project, or we are like 2 or 3, it's not so great. Then we're adding one layer of complexity, because when it comes to deployment, you have to deploy the two frameworks sort of separately, and like additional cost with the different servers. Then you do not get to enjoy everything that Django gives you, especially when it comes to authentication. You have to rely on React-based authentication methods, whether it's JWT or any other authentication tokens, and it's usually very hard to rely on Django sort of session-based authentication and a few other things. And then of course you cannot serve Django templates to this. React takes all the pages, and all the routing is done in React. But what I'm proposing is a hybrid approach where you still have your Django and your Django templates, but we inject React inside the Django templates. And so the advantage of doing this is that you can use both Django templates and React together. Meaning, like for example, the landing page can be a Django page, the contact us page can be made from React, and maybe something dynamic. So you get to choose the best from both worlds. And even aspects like CSRF tokens, when it comes to forms, you can directly inject that into React. And that means you can even have like hybrid authentication flows, which are very easy to do with Django and a bit hard to do with React. And again, of course, the biggest thing here, the biggest selling point is that you get to deploy this at once. You don't have to invest in 2 servers. The disadvantages of this approach is that, of course, there's some manual copying of some JS files that you have to do in each deployment. It's a bit messy when it comes to collecting static in this sort of hybrid. And maybe the biggest con for me is that Webpack. You have to do some Webpack configuration from the ground up, which is not so nice if you're not used to it and if you're used to Create React App. And again, you have to do separate UI tests. If you have some pages that are running from Django views, like sort of your normal template views, you have to do their testing in PyTest or Python or whatever you're using. And then for the React pages running on JSX, you have to write separate tests running on Jest. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a virtual environment, call it VNV, in the same folder that we've created. And once that is done, we are going to install Django. So I'm going to say pip. First of all, I need to activate this environment. Sorry. So I have a shortcut in my terminal that does that for me. Then I'm going to install Django. Give it a second. And now once Django is installed, then we can move ahead and create the Django project. So this should be fairly quick. So then what you're going to do is that we are going to say Django admin start project. I'm going to call it Django React and start it in the same directory. I can see that is there. Then if I run my server and open up Chrome, let's give it a second. 8,000, and I should see the normal. I should see that Django is working. Awesome. So this is a standard Django, but now what we need to do oops, what we need to do is to now integrate React. So how do we do that? Okay, so the first thing we need to do is I'm going to stop this from running, is that we need to create another application inside React, sort of, and we're going to call it UI. So what I'm going to do is I say Python, oops, Python manage.py startup, maybe we call it UI. It's a habit I have. And so it has created a new application called UI. You can literally call this anything you want. And if now we run server again, one of the things we need to do is come to settings.py, standard Django stuff. I'm going to push this to the side. And what we need to do is first of all add the new UI to static files. Then we need to create a view that is where we are going to inject the React application. So how do we do that? So first of all, I'm going to create a view inside this Django React. You can create this view anywhere you want. So I can create a new file. We're going to call it views. Again, you can literally create this anywhere you want. It can even be in another third application. Views.py, sorry. Yeah, install all of these things. Okay. So then in this views.py, I'm going to, first of all, let me import template view. I hope Copilot does that for me. Yes. So then install MyPy. Need to push this to the side. So I'm going to say class, oops, sorry guys. I'm going to call this like React view. You can literally call it anywhere, anything you want. This is going to inherit from template view. And we need just to pass, I think it's called template name. I think it's template name. And we are going to pass in a certain template here. So again, the normal way of doing this in Django, it's you come to the UI. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it templates. Then inside templates, you have to create another folder called UI, which is the exact same name as the name of the app. Then inside there, we are going to give this a name. I can call it, let's say, react.html. You can call it whatever you want. And then what is going to happen now in our views, we pass in that file. We say UI, then what did we call it? react.html. Awesome. So, and in this React HTML, I can pass in a normal template. Yes, install block. Let me change first of all this to HTML to enable me to create some quick shortcuts. My computer is hanging. So HTML. Okay, it's not giving me the shortcut, so I'm going to do it and I'm going to have a head tag, and I'm going to have a body tag. Oops. And in this body tag, I'm going to have a h1 that just says hello UI app. Okay, so that is that. Then in our settings, we make sure UI is there. In our views, we've created this React view, so we need to pass into the URLs. So for now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say the path that leads to home, basically a blank. We are going to pass in the React view dot as view. Then we give it a name React. Okay, we need to make sure we've imported this. So I'll say from dash views, import that. So now what I expect is that on our home page, if I refresh the page now, okay, something's not happening. Okay, let me rerun this. What I expect now is that if I run this does not exist UI react.html. Okay, let me see. Template name UI react.html, UI templates UI react. This should work, not unless this has not saved. Okay, let's see. Okay, now that works. So now we have a normal application that is running. Now, how do we now integrate React? This is where the fun begins. So what we do is that ideally we want to inject all the React code inside this react.html. If you've worked with React before, you know that there's usually like in the public folder, there's usually like an index.html. So this is where we need to inject. And the easiest way to do this is here in the body tag, we need to have like a script tag. And we need to close this. And what these script tags needs to have, it needs to have a source, and that source comes from, no, it's literally, if you've done this before, you say static, and it's going to come from a file called main.js that we don't have yet. But for now, just know that we need a certain file that we are going to call main.js. Allow me to put this as single quotes. Of course, to do this, we need to change this back to Django template. To do this, we need to load static. And so now we need to go and find a file called main.js that we don't have, but bear with me. So now that we've done that, what we need to do is now install React so that we can inject the bundled main.js file into this. But before I do that, what I like doing, and it's a good practice, is I'll come here and create a new file. I call it templates. Then I'm going to create base.html. And I'm going to basically copy all of this. Come and copy it to base.html. And so what I'm going to do is, of course, delete this, and I need to put in here a block. I'm going to call it block body or block content. And so what we are going to do here in React is that this is going to extends base.html, and we are going to put here block content, just put these two things here. Awesome. So again, we don't need a lot of this stuff. You can just remove most of this stuff. Okay. Now, if we go back to our app, it should still be working the same way. Oh, template does not exist, base.html. That is easy. We come to settings, and what we do is that in the templates folder, should have a templates, and so what you're going to do is os.path.join old school that way, and so what we do based templates, and we need to import os. And now that error should have, hopefully, let me make sure we saved, and that error should hopefully have gone. And now we have a duplicate of this. Let's check why. I'm going to close this. Is in the React we have hello UI app, so we don't need to have this in the React app. It needs to be in the main so that we know. Okay, I'm actually going to say hello from base. Okay, now what we need to do after this is that we need to come and install React inside this UI folder. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new terminal here. I'm going to cd inside UI, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say we need to initialize yarn init -y. That just initializes like an empty, repository for, like an empty application, node based, and you can see I just called UI. Then from there we need to install a few dependencies, so just give me a minute. Okay, so there's a few dependencies that we need to install. The first one, of course, is the Webpack itself. So make sure you paste that in. So Webpack is the bundler that is going to bundle all the JavaScript code that you are going to do, and create this main.js file. It's also what create React app uses behind the scenes, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to minimize this. The second thing we are going to install is Babel or Babel, depending on how you pronounce it. So Babel is a transpiler that basically converts all the new JavaScript code, whether you are writing that in the ES Next, ES6, back to ES5 code. If you're also writing TypeScript, it's also what converts back to the basic JavaScript that the browser can understand. So here we install Babel. This is the link that I'm going to post in the description below. So the core Babel, the preset React, which it's more about converting the JSX to JavaScript, and also we have the preset environment. So the next thing we are going to install is the Babel loaders. So we have the CSS loader, so that if you have written any custom CSS on your React application, is going to be converted. And also if you have other style loaders, for example, if you're using Tailwind or any other SaaS loader, it's what is going to do that work for us. So now that is done, I'm going to install that, and I can see here Webpack and Webpack CLI have installed. So then we are going to install React and React DOM, and also finally we are going to install React Router DOM. So all of these. So you will have noticed that majority of these things we are installing them as dev dependencies. And why is that? Is because for us we are only interested in this main.js file. So unlike other Create React apps, everything that we install will be a dev dependencies, because you're only interested on using Webpack and all these other things as tools to compile the main.js file. So because of the time this is going to take, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to install React and all these loaders, then we are going to continue from there. Okay, now that that is all done, we can see our package.json. The next thing we need to add to this, let me just minimize some of these folders so that they don't distract us, is that now we have, now we have this UI folder, we have the package.json and a node modules folder. So what we need to do now is that we need to configure Webpack. So I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it webpack.config.js, and here I've pasted some standard code, and you can find it in this GitHub gist that I'm going to share on my repository. So what is webpack.config? So basically these are the instructions we are giving to Webpack about the folders it needs. So we have a couple of things. So first of all, we have an entry, and this entry, which we've not created yet, is the entry point of all the React application code. Now, if you've worked with React before, you know when you create it, you're going to find a source folder and an index.js. We've yet to create that, but we're going to create after this. So that's our entry point. That's the first file it looks for, then creates a dependency tree or a dependency graph from there. The output, what are we trying to output? So we need to output something to a static folder called UI, which we've not created yet. And it's going to have the name of a certain name.js. In this case, it's going to be main.js by default. We're also telling Webpack to resolve any files in our folder that has JS, JSX, JSON, TypeScript, or TSX, which we are not going to use for this tutorial. Please try to compile all of them and convert them to JS and put them in the project. So we have some modules where when we have JS or JSX files, and we need to exclude the node modules, we don't need to transpile anything there because these are just dependencies. We use the bubble loader. When we are doing the TypeScript files, we use a TypeScript loader. And when you are doing CSS, we use styling loaders. If we are to use something like Sass, there's Sass loaders there as well. So optimization, we need to minimize the file so that it's minified. And we have some default configuration in development. So this is the most bare bones that we can have. Now we need to solve a couple of things. We need to solve this where the entry, we need an index.js, and we also need where this file is going to be stored. Now let's start with the index.js. So we are saying relative to where we are, the webpack.config, we create a source folder. This is the same format that you see, like even in React, you have a source folder, and in this we need to have an index.js. So new file, we call it index.js. Again, you can name this anything you want. Just make sure that the name index.js is what is there also in our Webpack config. Now, in this index.js, we need a couple of things. I don't know if I can remember that offhand. So I think I should have typed it somewhere here. Yes, we need to import this. This is a standard React index.js where we import React from React, React DOM from React DOM client. This is the new React 18 syntax. Then we tell React, go into a certain file and look for the root element. So what we need to do is come here to the React application, and we need to add something, div, and we give it an ID, we call it root. and we close the div. Again, this is usually present in the public index.html, but now we are creating it in our React HTML. And now, so what React is going to do is look at the HTML file and look at the root element, which is this div id root, and inject the main.js file. Okay, so we've solved this. So what should be interesting is that we need to figure out a way to run this. So first of all, this static UI is where it's going to put the JS file. So by default, if you come to UI, we create a new folder, we call it static. Then inside this static folder, we create another folder called UI. It's a similar structure to what we have with the templates, and so that's where our main.js is going to be. But how do we now run this project? So in order for us to run, we need to add something to the package.json. And this, if you've worked with the other React before, there's something called scripts. And so here we are going to have, here we are going to start with dev, which basically will be, okay, let me just copy, I have it somewhere. Okay, let me just copy all of this. So we add two scripts, one called dev and one called build. So anytime you run npm run dev or yarn run dev or npm run build, it's going to run this command. In the traditional Create React app is usually like start, where you say npm run start. So this will be start. So we have that. So now we should be good to go, but there's one more file missing, and it's the bubble configuration. So I'm going to create bubble rc. This is the last step, I promise, guys. So, and I'm going to copy this thing here. So then I'm going just to paste it in, and now we are good to go. So now if I open up I have 3 tabs here running. If I open and I make sure that I'm in the UI folder, and now if I run yarn run dev, I'm using yarn. In your case, if you're using npm, is the same. You can see Webpack is in development, and you can see inside the static folder. Just a second, we need to save this webpack.config. This bubble rc index.js. Let me close all of this. Okay, so I'm getting an error in React. It's saying you may need an appropriate loader to handle this file type. Currently, 0 loaders are configured to process this file, and it's something to do with, let me just restart this for a second. So it's telling me, okay, let me see. Cannot resolve app in that browser didn't contain. Okay, so let me see where the problem is. So it seems it's in this app. I know where the problem is. So here we've imported some imaginary app that we've not created. So I'm going to create in the source folder in the same, I'm going to create app.js. And so what I'm going to do in this, I'm going to create a very basic, let me just cancel this. I'm going to create a very basic React application app, and it's just going to be called app. And so now this should rebuild successfully, And now this is what I was saying. If you look on the left, you're going to see a main.js file. Actually, let me just delete this so that you see where the magic is. So if I come and delete this permanently, in the static UI, again, this is where we defined, if I can close this, and I'm going also to close the package.json file. I'm also going to close this and just open the Webpack config. So remember here we said that any file that we make is going to be the static UI, which is this. So now what happens, watch closely, if I make any changes in my React application, so let's say I come here and say hello from React, what is going to happen is Webpack is going to build, then immediately main.js is going to pop up. Now, if we come back to our Django application, I can see hello from base, and if I refresh, anything yet? No. Okay, let me inspect. Console to see if there's any error, and I'm going to hard refresh this. Actually, what I need to do, apologies, is let me first of all migrate all the initial migrations that were there. Then I'm going to run server from scratch, and I'm also going to restart this development server. So now if Django is running, what have I done? And I refresh this, still seeing hello from base. So let's look at the URL that we put. Okay, so it seems everything is okay. I think the last thing we need to load, I think the main.js is not being loaded. So, and I think there's a couple of configurations we need to do. So what I'm going to do is just make sure that the static files are set correctly. Oh, I can see they're not here. So I need, for example, we state the static root, and this is going to be just static. Then we need to set the static files directories. So we need to join let me just push this to the side, and I also need to add os.path.join. Then we join what based UI and this static folder, and maybe UI again. Static UI, so that we can also load this. Okay, so try to refresh. Yes, and now we can have hello from React. Awesome. So we need also to tell Django where the static file directories are, so it can load the main.js, because remember here we told it load static and also load this main.js. But if you've not defined where the static files are, then it cannot find these. One more thing that I like doing, I like here come and saying if settings dot debug, then there's that. Copilot gives me that out of the box. Then I need to import settings. Oops. import settings. Import. Oops. I don't need that. Yeah, I need that. Yep. Okay. So I'm just going to delete that. Okay, and just to confirm everything is still okay, that is that. Now, we've now successfully integrated the best of We've now just integrated the best of the two worlds, but there's still one major problem that is here, and this comes from here. So if I minimize this and I come, for example, and I'm working now on my React application, and let's say here I come and say testing live reload, and I save this file. Nothing happens, and this is usually annoying because now I have to come back and refresh here so that I can see the changes. But why we love React so much is that capability of live reload. And now the solution to solve that as the final step is this a new awesome package called Django live reload that basically checks any new static files or HTML files that are actively changing, and it refreshes that for us. How cool is that? So I'm going to come here, pop back up, and I go to my Python, and I'm going to install that. Then, oops, it's not this. It's clearly not this. It's clearly not that package. That's not the one I wanted. It's Django. I think it's called Django. Yeah, it's called Django browser reload. Apologies. So I just installed the wrong thing, but we need to install this. So I'm going to go to the project homepage. Yep, this is it. Okay, so I'm going to install this. I don't have time to uninstall the other one, but it's okay. So I'm going to install that. Then in the install apps, I need to put this in. So I'm going to come to my settings.py. In the install apps, I'm just going to pop this there. Then we need to put this in our urls.py. So open this, and in our urls.py, can pop this to the side. I'm going to add that, and we need to include path. We need to copy this. And then we need to add this middleware to our settings.py file. I'm going to add it at the last instance like that. And now if everything is okay, we should see some very interesting results here. So I'm going to open back that. I'm going to close my settings.py. I'm also going to close my React HTML, my URLs, my Webpack, close everything up and wait for this to save. Okay. Now I see here a notification, and I don't know how this came to split itself. So here I get a warning. It's saying the directory does not. So it's saying the directory static files does not exist because we put it and we've not created it. So let me just create that quickly. New folder, static files. So now this should be okay, and I can see my Webpack is running. So I'm going to restart everything. So run server on that side, and then on this other side we come and run development. So it's now done. So I'm going to pop this, and I'm now going to work from the React application that is running as well. And I'm going to put a h1 tag. I'm going to say finally this works. And now if I save, we should get an automatic refresh, which it's not happening for some reason. So let me see what's not happening. Okay, let me just restart this once more, and I'm going to hard reload. Okay, so this works. So add a few of that, save. So Webpack should do that, and Chrome on this other side should refresh, and it's not. So it seems maybe we had a bad installation. Let me see, maybe there's something that I forgot to do. It should be okay. Okay, I'm going to start this in a new tab, sort of. See, and I'm going to inspect back my URLs. It is okay. Settings not pure. Guys, I actually think that maybe one of the things we need to do here is maybe add where the React template is, so that the live reload can find it. So I'm going to do .path, and I think we've put it in UI templates, and I'm going to also put maybe /UI. Let's see if this works, and I'm going to again restart the development server completely. Okay, so let's reduce this to one full stop. Come on. So after careful looking, I actually found out that I had an error where I had not closed this div. So it was looking something like that. So I've managed to close this div like that. And now what happens is that whenever I edit any, if I come back to app.js and say hi there from React, like so, the browser should automatically reload and show. So the reason we are still seeing hello from base is because we are extending the react.html from base.html, and that means, for example, in base.html you can still have your navigation bar, login and logout, and only have React control like the content, so you can have it in either way. So in the next video, what we'll be doing is that we are going to look how we can have different URLs for Django and different URLs for React. And of course, for this application, if you go to admin, you are going to go to the Django admin page. So in the next, we are going to look at how do we integrate Django routing as well as React routing for different pages, and see how we can gradually maybe take Django pages into React and vice versa, or how they can coexist together. As always, if you're finding me for the first time, please subscribe, and I look to seeing you in the next one.